posted a little while ago talking about some of the societal problems we're facing, and particular the recent shootings. Kind of one that made me really want to talk about this was the shooting at the Covenant School there in Nashville. Of course, there's also the recent shooting at the bank in Louisville. And actually, I posted some short thoughts on those, but really you can't get to the bottom of a subject like that in 30 seconds. But made me want to talk about it a little more in depth and kind of address some facts that are going to annoy some people. There's going to be probably some people that want to fight on it, some people that are going to disagree with it. And so I want to say up front that I'm not trying to take issue with anybody. I'm definitely not trying to offend anybody. But what I do want to do is say that we would do really well to kind of check our politics at the door, so to speak, and talk about reality, talk about facts, talk about what actually is going to make a difference in our communities, our neighborhoods, our cities. And so a couple things I want to look at is, one is realm of influence. Where can we make an impact? I want to talk about some root causes, and that's probably going to be the most controversial aspect of this. Is a lot of people want to pin root causes on a lot of things, and most of those are ideologically driven. So I'm more interested in facts on that. Kind of one other aspect that is going to probably be a little bit over the top of what some people want to think about is a long-term plan and solution. If I can use the word solution, to be honest, Pandora's box is open. I don't think there's a real solution. We're not going to be able to go back in time, but we can definitely reshape the future. So life is a little bit like chess. You can't undo the move you made, but you definitely can make better moves with what you got. And the good news is we've got a lot of moves available to us. And we've had some blows for sure. There's been people taking shots at the pawns for a long time, but we still have what it takes to make some differences. So kind of want to touch on that. One thing is looking at sphere of influence. And this is going to overlap with the third point there, but we can't really expect that we're going to, I hate to use the phrase, but change the world. It's not like we can somehow miraculously turn around some major societal problems, but we can definitely limit their intrusion into our sphere of influence. So what I mean by that is, let's take the issue of gun violence. That was, again, kind of the thing that stirred some of this, but we can't go back and take guns away from people that have done terrible things with them in the past. We can't necessarily change the attitude of a generation of people. We can't go back and undo some of the harms that were done by people well-meaning or naive. But we can make a difference in our families. And we can make a difference in our communities, in our little friend group. You can impact a lot of people a little bit, but you can impact a few people quite a bit. And one of the things I'd love to do is start by trying to get away from so much ideology driving what we say, think, feel, are offended by, and start really paying more attention to facts. And I guess kind of an underlying thing is we gotta deal with respect too. You can't deal with people disrespectfully and expect to have a whole lot of influence over what they see, think, do. So kind of that's one aspect, is our sphere of influence is limited, but you can impact how things are shaped in your family. Like, you can have an impact with your kids if you got kids, maybe your parents. You can probably shape a little bit of the way that a spouse sees things around them. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm not talking about manipulating it. So if that's kind of where your brain's going with this, just throw that idea out the window. As far as I'm concerned, manipulation is just disrespectful inherently. What I am talking about, nice day by the river, by the way. You can see that. I'm not see it here though. What I am talking about though is helping them to see things in proper framing. And so that's just part of normal life. That's part of what we do when we become parents. We try to help, you get that kid that thinks the world's crashing when one little thing happens. And so it's really important to help them understand how to navigate that, help them to see what really is or isn't happening, so that they can go through life with a healthy resiliency and understand a proper perspective. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. The other thing is that I want to deal with facts here. So specifically dealing with these shootings. A lot of people want to get really offended about a lot of things. And I'm just going to kind of touch on them directly. A lot of people want to think that this is a gun issue. A lot of people want to think that this is a sexuality or identity issue. A lot of people want to blame it on, physical factors. There was maybe a lack of security that could have stopped this. And so those three big issues, I want to kind of face them head on, give you my take on them. Again, understand I'm doing this respectfully. I'm trying to do this factually. This is my opinion, so frame it with that. If you disagree with me, I'm definitely open to discussion, again, as long as it's respectfully. I respect everybody and their right to an opinion, and I am actually open to hearing your opinion and learning from it, unless it's not dealing with facts, it's not dealing with reality, and it's not dealing with a respectful way of communicating. So here's what I see with that. For the people that want to see it as a gun issue, there's a couple issues with that. You could definitely argue that if there was no guns, there could be no shootings. Hey, I'm 100% on board with that from a logic perspective. Unfortunately, that's just not reality. There is guns, and there's been guns around for a long time, and Pandora's box is open. We're not going to address that anytime. If we decided that tomorrow, as a society, we were going to reject guns, we were going to stop their manufacture, stop their sale, stop the sale of ammunition, stop distribution, make them illegal, it would take a couple of generations to actually make any impact on guns' role in violence. And I know some people might argue with me on that, but that's facts. There is literally so many millions of guns out there. And if we look at history, if we are honest about looking even at news, we'll realize it's not any one particular thing. It's not any one particular gun. It's not any one particular type of ammunition. It's not one manufacturer. The massive majority of these guns are actually used for good. They are used for sport and recreation in a way that is healthy and supportive. For example, I definitely put food on my table with a gun. But a lot of people, they want to just say, hey, let's ban guns, or let's ban a certain type of guns. Let's say we're going to ban assault rifles, or we're going to ban guns with a certain capacity. I definitely understand the heart behind that. Like, if you are coming at that from a place of saying, hey, I really want to do something to help stop gun violence, then hey, hats off to you, kudos. I agree with you, and I appreciate your perspective on that. I do think that logically and truthfully speaking, that's not going to solve the issue. There's still guns out there. So I grew up in Canada, where these guns have been banned for generations. Like, we don't have full auto guns here. We don't have high capacity guns. We've been limited to 10 rounds for a long time. And things like AR-15s are very rare in our society overall. There's a lot of sport shooters that use them for target stuff, but they're not prevalent in very many households, to be honest with you. And the same with handguns. There's never been a massive culture of large amount of handguns here. But it's interesting, because if you go to major urban centers, Toronto's in the news all the time, there's a lot of shootings. And a lot of times it's done with what is legal, but it's been gained illegally. But the majority of them is actually illegal firearms that have been manufactured, modified, or imported illegally. Those people aren't going to be impacted by any change in legislation. They're not going to be. If we already make it illegal for them to have that firearm, and they still have that firearm and are shooting people with that firearm, and that's not legal for access here, how is a new rule going to affect that? It's like the drug trade. We've had rules against cocaine for years. Guess what? We still have a cocaine problem. We've had rules against meth for years. Guess what? It's still a problem. Rules aren't going to eliminate it. Rules will reduce the usage among law-abiding citizens. That's it. They will not stop it, and they definitely will not stop it with those that are not what we would consider to be normally law-abiding citizens. So if your response to a school shooting is to ban a certain type of firearm, I very respectfully would ask or recommend that you think through that logically, because it won't get the result that you want. We can argue a lot ideologically about whether guns have a place in civil society or not. That's a different discussion for sure. But if the question is, will firearm legislation affect gun violence? The answer, using logic and what we actually have for facts, is no, it won't. So if we do want to make a difference, then we're forced to look at two other factors. One is the physical factor that we talked about, and that is security. And this is where people that are ideologically fans of the firearm industry and firearms culture, you'll hear a lot of times they want to say, well, the answer is more guns. And there's an argument to be made for that. The idea is, or the common phrase is, the problem is we need more guns in the hands of good guys. Where that falls flat is you don't always know who the good guy is, right? And so that's got a gap in its theory. I think we could all agree that if only people with good intentions and good training had firearms, we wouldn't have these problems, for sure. So there's room for you to discuss that. I do think that every firearm owner should be well trained. I think that they should know how to operate that safely, how to store that safely. That's a huge one, how to store it safely, right? And how to avoid it being an issue with other people. But we still run into the problem of the fact that wherever there are shootings, it's always stopped with another gun. Always. It's either the shooter realizes that they're coming to the end of their rope, the end of their run, their end of their liberty to cause harm, and they end it themselves, or they're ended by a firearm or another a firearm owner or law enforcement of some type that's ending the spree, as we saw in Nashville and as we saw in Louisville. Both of those were ended by well-trained, protective people that did have firearms. And kudos to those officers for putting themselves in harm's way for the protection of other people and putting it on the line. And I'm going to be honest about it, to have the guts to actually make that fatal decision, that's not an easy decision to make. Those officers are going to have to face the memory of ending that, ending a life to end that violence. And, you know, we appreciate that they were able to prevent more injuries, but that's still not an easy decision for them to make. So we talk about something like the Covenant school shooting. What would an armed guard have done for a difference? Like, again, let's not try to make this political. Let's not try to make this ideological, but just facts. Let's talk real facts, because at the end of the day, ideas don't save people. Politics don't save people, but reality can. And the reality is that if there had been a properly trained, competent person with a firearm, they could have stopped that essentially immediately. So that makes us want to ask the question, would it make sense to have armed security there? You know, I didn't have armed security at school when I grew up, and I had the fortunate experience of growing up in a small enough school where we knew everybody really well. But it does make you ask the question, would it make sense, given the fact that, again, Pandora's box is opened, there is unhinged people out there that are willing to cause harm to others. And does it make sense to put appropriately trained, armed people in a position where they can prevent that from happening? If we, again, looking at facts, we look back and realize that this person vetted multiple locations and stated that they chose this location partially due to the fact that there was nothing that was going to stop them, get in the way of them causing the harm that they intended to cause. So armed security was something that they already stated was a deterrent to them. Maybe they'd always find another place where there's less security, maybe. But I kind of feel like that at some point, if it was difficult enough, it might have been enough deterrent to cause them to try and get the attention to what they were trying to say, do, feel, express in some other less lethal way. So there's that. But I would love to hear what you think about armed security. Is that a valid option for us? Is that something we should be exploring in schools and maybe malls? Is that really something that we want? I mean, I think, again, in a perfect society, we know we don't want that. But is that the answer to the fact of the reality where we are in our society right now? I would humbly submit that I think it probably is, as unfortunate as that is. It probably is something that we should take a long, serious look at. The other thing that I want us to talk about is how we can impact the future. We have a circle of influence, and I'm gonna state a fact here. The problem that we are having these kind of situations is a family problem. We have a lot of kids that are growing up in families where they don't know who they are. They don't know that they are unconditionally loved. They don't have the skill sets where they have been raised to deal with conflict or disagreements in a healthy, reasonable way. You know, part of raising kids is they're constantly getting ticked off about stuff, and you navigate that. You help them learn how to negotiate and figure out what they're feeling and find healthy outlets and get to a place of healthy psychology and healthy mental state on that. And we don't have families that are doing that as much anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always been families that have done this poorly. You know, you look back at history and, you know, you see the stereotype of, you know, the dad that's just doing a factory job and put his feet on the couch and has no respect for anybody else in the family. He wants to be some kind of king without putting in the leadership to make everybody know that they're loved, taken care of, and supported. You know, or the stereotype of the cocktail mom that's just, you know, getting day drunk and not paying attention to kids. That's been an issue through history. There's the stories of, you know, people that just next to no input, they just abandoned their kids and, you know, maybe just took care of their physical needs and that's it. That's always been a problem, but it's never been near as much of a problem as it is today. We see a lot. We see most people are physically taken care of. It's pretty hard to go through life in North America, at least, without being able to find food, water, and shelter if you are willing to take care of those things. We have a lot of supports in society from a physical care perspective. But what we don't have is a lot of perspective and balance. We don't have the structure where two loving parents are actually sacrificially pouring into kids, willing to take the hard time to talk to the kids about the difficult subjects, willing to be honest about facts. You know, it's a big one right now. We've got an issue where we're constantly arguing about what is or isn't reality, and that's going to really annoy some people. But you can't just say something is and then have people accept that as a fact. There are things that are true and untrue, and that's okay. And I will say this, that if you disagree with me on any perspective, you're welcome to that opinion, and I support you in your freedom to have that opinion. But it is downright disrespectful for you to tell me how I need to think, for you to tell me that I have to say things a certain way, to tell me that I have to not say what I feel just because you disagree with it. You know, people talk about hate speech all the time, but unfortunately I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that hate speech is whenever somebody that I hate is speaking. That's not what it means. Hate speech is when you are actually inciting hatred or harm to somebody else. And I'm gonna go on the record saying that I don't agree with hatred or harm of any individual, but I definitely do support the ability for people to say what they think and be honest about that. Let's just not try to control each other. If you tell me I have to refer to something a certain way, that's not really your business. You know, I can do whatever you want. I can call my truck a Chariot, and that's my business. But I don't get to demand you call my truck a Chariot. Why? What you do is not my business. You're not hurting me. You might offend me, but offending somebody is no big deal. That's part of life. We get offended all the time. That's part of what we have in society is the problem. We think that being offended gives me some kind of a right, and it doesn't. But sorry, getting back to the subject is we need families that are willing to actually talk to kids about what is reality, what is not, that are willing to teach them radical respect. That is where we treat each other with respect, no matter what. And hey, we're human, so when we screw that up, we own it, we apologize, we make amends, and in the long run, that builds more respect. And that we are actually willing to let our kids have some real perspective on life. You know, we have thrown away the idea of discipline. Now, caveat, I'm not talking about beating somebody, trust me. But I'm talking about not just letting somebody get away with just rampant, crazy, some kind of perspective where they think that they can just do whatever they want. You know, there's a lot of kids that would really benefit from a little bit of time getting sent to their room to chew on the way they behaved. There's a lot of kids that would really do well to be told that they have to go apologize to that teacher or that student that they talked to or treated badly. And that shouldn't always be conditional on the other person to take care of things. We can't control other people, but we should learn to own our own stuff. And if we got kids that we've raised and we don't help them understand what is good, what is not good, what is right or wrong in this world, we don't teach them at all how to deal with their money. We don't teach them how to take care of their spouse or their children or their siblings and the other people that they care about and love. That's borderline child abuse. We ought to be teaching kids how to be real people, how to be good people. And I'll tell you what, we have all these shootings, all this other violence, and the strong majority, if not all of those people, do not have a clear picture of who they are, of their place in the world, of understanding that it's not their place to try and control everybody else or to worry about whether everybody else agrees with them. If we can teach our kids to respect others, to respect themselves, they won't be out there causing harm to others. That's just reality. People that care about others and know and respect who they are not out there causing harm to others. They're productive. They are helping those who love them. They're helping those they love. And they are building. And at the end of the day, building is so much greater than breaking. So where do we go with all this? A couple of points. Go make a difference. Talk to your kids. Talk to your family. Build some strong dinner times. I'd like to suggest that you make the effort to have a consistent family meal where most days it's a given you're going to eat dinner together. I will tell you what, I try to do that, and it's not easy. Between school activities, parties that get scheduled, maybe activities in our community or church or school around us, it's hard to schedule that all the time. But we make a serious effort for that, and most of the time, we can make it happen. And I will tell you conclusively that it is one of the biggest factors in a family staying connected, in a family having a sense of community, stability, and roots, and understanding that no matter what goes on around them, no matter how crazy the world seems, they've got a safe place, and they're okay. And that goes a long ways. Second thing, get some good community around you. I'm a Christian, and I've been blessed with a good church. I find that's a really good place. We have a good group of people that love us. We got a good group of people that work together for good in the community. And if your church is bent on hating somebody, or it's just all a show and it's a production every weekend, I'd recommend finding somewhere different, because that's not what it's about. It's not about hating on anybody. It's about following the example we are given of love, of trying to help people see what's right, what's good, what will be helpful to them. Build that community. Be part of it. Don't just show up on Sunday morning, sing a couple songs, listen to a little speech, and go for coffee. Get in there. Be part of a small group. Help lead in the class. Maybe you can be part of the hospitality team, or you could take some part. I will say this, there is data that proves that kids and people that are engaged in helping, in working in their community groups, whether that is church, whether it's a Rotary Club, people that are engaged in helping, where they are actively taking some of the work, they have far greater buy-in, they have far greater community satisfaction, they have stronger connections, they have better mental health. Yes, there's a point where you can overwork yourself and you can go all, just kind of overload to where you're a workaholic. I'm not talking about that, obviously, but put some effort in, give back. Anyway, that's what I got for today. River's still beautiful around me, but I got some other things I got to get back to. I would really, really love to hear what you think about this, your thoughts, some input, maybe some good points. Hey, if you disagree with me, let me know. You can message me directly, you can leave a comment, but again, respect and facts go a long ways to help and make sure that we don't just keep perpetuating the same kind of stuff that we're not loving about what's going on. Cheers.